uncovering one layer after the other, then you realize it's the tip of the iceberg. That's how we felt. We know that Hamas has been using hospitals as headquarters. We know schools. Just recently, we found a terror tunnel under a children's bedroom. We are a culture and a society who values life. And we cherish life more than anything. And they, the terrorists, they value death. For them to become a martyr and to bomb yourself in a terror attack is an achievement. A lot of people are being evacuated from the north of Israel as well. We're talking about between 80 to 100,000 people who are displaced in their own country, to the most brutal attack ever documented in the last years. We didn't start it, and yet everyone comes to us with when this cycle of violence will end. Why is no one asking Hamas? Sometimes when you're saying people are picking sides or picking a team, I want to be very clear. People can support Israel and support the Palestinians at the same time. It's not contradicting.
Αναγνωρισμένο τετραετές πρόγραμμα Διεθνείς σχέσεις, Παγκόσμια οικονομία και Στρατηγική ανάλυση. Διδάσκουν οι δόκτορες Χαραλαμπίδης Γιάννος, Δενιόζος Νίκος, Φίλης Γεώργιος και άλλοι καταξιωμένοι πανεπιστημιακοί, ειδικοί συνεργάτες, αξιωματικοί, οικονομολόγοι και διεθνολόγοι. Κολέγιο Λίδρα για σπουδές στις διεθνείς σχέσεις, παγκόσμια οικονομία και στρατηγική ανάλυση. Οι εγγραφές άρχισαν.
Φίλες και κύριοι θεατές, καλό σας απόγευμα. Σε αυτόν ακριβώς το σημείο, I have to tell in English. You know, you're going to hear my beautiful Cyprus English again, but what can I do? It's only language I can communicate with my guest. Rotem Segev is a deputy ambassador of Israel, of State of Israel in Cyprus, and actually he returns, if we're going to say like a joke, he returns to the crime scene after 11 months, because that's almost this is the time that we had her, host her, the last time. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning, Haris. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for actually to accept my invitation, because we can deal with the things with humor, but actually it's really tragic what's happening. And I remember that 11 months ago it was just begin the war. I really don't know how to call it anymore. I mean, there are so many ways to address to this situation. And to be honest with you again, I was feeling like the rest of the world that okay, it's gonna be some time, I don't know, days, week, month, and this is gonna finish. Now it's 11 months and everything seems that it's not finished at all. Actually, it seems like it's just started.
It is a very long time. I don't think that there is any one person in Israel that had this estimation that it will last so long. But it feels like, you know, when you start discovering a problem and you're uncovering one layer after the other, then you realize it's the tip of the iceberg. That's how we felt. Because for a long time, the situation in Gaza was happening. I mean, Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, Hamas took over in 2007, and every few years we had these rounds of fighting in Gaza. It wasn't really new to us. So we had a wrong estimation that this is what it will be this time again, like we had in previous cases. But first of all, it was the first time that they actually broke into Israel, with not just with the rockets, that they did for many years, but also with terrorists who infiltrated the country and murdered so many people in their homes and in their villages. We know what happened. But it was the first time that they prepared for it for a long time, in the sense that the problem was probably under our noses. We did not really see it coming, not in the way that they did it. and it was much deeper than we thought. I mean, just as an example, the terror tunnels that they built, the terror city that they have, we estimated it to be around 300 kilometers. In the end of the day, after we entered Gaza and we started eliminating these terror tunnels, we realized it's over 700 kilometers. We are talking about a longer terror tunnels than this New York subway. That's how long it is. And we know that those tunnels, they go deep, they are very well equipped, they kept there a lot of ammunition for years, and to protect themselves and to protect all their ammunitions and equipment in order to make it as severe as possible. And just recently I read a New York Times article that says that there are evaluations or some indications of Hamas trying to loop in Iran into this October 7 attack before it happened, and that they were doing it in purpose to not going into a largest war with Israel throughout the years in order to prepare for something big and to have their backs with the Iranians. And I think it tells a lot. It tells a lot about why it did not end in 1 month or 2 or 3 like we all hoped it would, because the preparations were something big from their side, and they did manage to loop in Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other proxies of Iran in the region. So it was just, uncovering one layer, and then you realize you're in a much bigger situation.
There is the surprising fact in all you just described is that the general public highly esteem, highly value how the Israeli counterintelligence, they can penetrate everywhere, and they can know everything, almost everything. In this situation just described, from the 300 kilometer, it was 700 kilometer. I mean, this is a hell of a job, and this is not in the other edge of the world. How they manage? It's okay. I'm not expect actually an answer like they did like this, but how you feel? How they manage to do this? Because exactly next to you.
Exactly the same way that they still manage to keep so many of our hostages in these terror tunnels, and we don't know where they are. So at the beginning, they kidnapped 251 people. At the beginning, they released some with the agreements that there were for a temporary ceasefire, etc. And at this moment, year after, we have 101 people still in the terror tunnels in Gaza, and we don't know where they are, because when we did extreme operations in order to let the people out, and we managed in some points, and in others we didn't. Just like the terrible case, I think it was a month ago, of the 6 hostages who were executed because the terrorists felt that the IDF is so near and so getting around them, so they just executed them and left. It's horrible, but we do not have information as per every kilometer of a tunnel, where it is, where it's not. We have some. That's how we do eliminate some of these terror tunnels. We know that Hamas has been using hospitals as headquarters. We know schools. Just recently we found a terror tunnel under a children's bedroom. I mean, they're everywhere. They're digging themselves within the civilian population intentionally to either avoid our reaction because they think that they will be protected there, or to create a bigger damage, and that it will look like as Israel is targeting the civilian facilities, which is not the case, obviously. We do know that in schools and in hospitals and in other civilian centers, they base themselves intentionally. I don't see any other class, not in Israel and not in Cyprus, where they have storage of rockets next to the children's classroom. I don't see it happening anywhere else.
Okay, I'd like to discuss what's the outcome of this. It's not finished actually. So what's the outcome of this 1 year, almost 1 year of war? And before that, I'd like you to comment. Back in the 90s, Samuel Huntington, it was the clash of civilization. But basically, he was brought into the public sphere that the post-Cold War conflicts, they're going to be because of cultural differences, because of religious differences. And basically, I have the feeling right now that in Israel we have exactly this thing. It's a clash of these civilizations. That's why maybe the whole Western world support actually Israel. That's why Cyprus supports Israel, because maybe we feel that if the outcome of this war is not how Israel believes or feels or must be, then maybe we're gonna start have the same thing.
I mean, I do agree with you that there are some differences in cultures, but I don't think that this is a religious fight. Because bear in mind that in Israel there are more than 20% Muslims and 80% Jews, and also Christians and other religious. And they're citizens of the country, full equal rights, and they do not support this. And a lot of Palestinians as well, who are Muslims, do not support this. It's Hamas who is terrorizing and controlling. Also, a lot of people from the Arab world who are Muslims do not support it, and they do support Israel. They want to do more agreements with Israel and to normalize the relations. That's what we have with the Emiratis and with the Saudi Arabia and with others in the region. So I don't think that this is a religious fight. I think that it's the fight between extremists, fanaticism, fundamentalist terrorists versus all the others. Because these terrorists, they also kill their own people. And I'm not talking about the time where they took over Hamas with power, basically, and killing their own fellows from the Palestinian Authority in 2007. I'm talking about right now, when people are being vocal about their opinions against Hamas, which you barely hear, but sometimes you do hear it. Where are they? Some of them are beaten, some of them are killed. Hamas even screened videos of them killing other Gazans for looting humanitarian aid, according to what they say. I mean, these people who are only trying to get the humanitarian aid for themselves and their families are being killed by Hamas for doing so. And I mean, there is no human rights, legal procedure, nothing. So I don't think that it's about religion, because they're also against their own people, and the Muslims in the world are not necessarily supporting this.
Maybe cultural differences then. Religion I understand, and I totally agree, but about culture?
I mean, there are cultural differences. I mean, we are a culture and a society who values life. And we cherish life more than anything. And they, the terrorists, they value death. For them to become a martyr and to bomb yourself in a terror attack is an achievement. So there is a big difference in these values. We like to, let's say, promote our children to have a bright future, to do the best that they could, while they train their children to be terrorists in Hamas summer camps in Gaza. And they preach them in schools to hate the Jews, to kill the Jews, that as many as you kill is for the best. There are big differences on that. We don't teach anyone to hate anyone. We still, even after we've been through, we still believe that there could be a peaceful solution, and there could be diplomatic solution, and we could find common ground, like we did in the past with our enemies, previous enemies, who are now our friends. I'm talking about Egypt, Jordan. We used to have big battles with these countries, and now we have peace agreements. We have tourists coming and going. We have people coming and going for work reasons. We have economic collaborations. It could happen, but you have to have a partner on the other side.
Yeah, for many people, October the 7th, it's a landmark of a new world order. It's they parallelize it with the September 11th. And if I added on this that the Prime Minister of State of Israel, Netanyahu, he said many times that we're going to change the map of the Middle East. So are we faced now, are we in front of a new order of things in the Middle East? What's your feeling?
I think that this is an opportunity to eliminate terror who is controlling the area. So if up until now Hamas was controlling Gaza, but we tried to contain it in a way that we thought that it will not be worthy for them to attack Israel, so we let them have their own thing, have enough money, enough resources to provide for their people. So we thought they are contained and restrained. In Lebanon with Hezbollah, we knew all along that they were building themselves. They are an army state level. That's a different story. We know that. But we were trying to prevent shipping of ammunition to arrive from Iran, and we managed to control this border peacefully without anything happening there. But since October 7, and since these terrorist organizations declare that these are their intentions and this is what they came to do, to eliminate the state of Israel, and this is what they will try to do again and again, then now we understand that we can no longer live and coexist next to this kind of organization. We cannot just sleep quietly when we know that these organizations will try as hard as they could, which they managed to do on October 7, to do it again. So now it's an opportunity to root out this terrorist organization from the region, not only for the sake of Israel, but also for the sake of the people. The people in Gaza are being controlled by a terrorist organization, Hamas, who is taking all their budget, all their humanitarian aid, looting it and selling it in the black market, using their facilities as headquarters, and also with the people of Lebanon. The people of Lebanon have been suffering from Hezbollah for many years. Now they have an opportunity, once the organization is weakened significantly after what Israel has done and the military operation that was there. They have an opening, they have an opportunity to speak up, to be stronger, to condemn it, and to make sure that it's not going back to infiltrate the way that it did before.
When you talk about people of Lebanon, I guess you talk about mainly about the Christians of Lebanon, because when it was the first attack into Hezbollah, basically there are people celebrating, but celebrating the Christians mainly. So that brings me maybe a bit back. No, I'm not going to insist on the religion thing. I'm just saying that the difference of culture, yes?
I think that both people can benefit from the elimination of Hezbollah, both the Christians and the Muslims. Even if people were celebrating, the people in Gaza also celebrate after October 7. We saw the videos of them cheering to the soldiers coming back, and also to the civilians who were coming back, because some civilians were also involved. But I think that minds of people can change. People have been indoctrinated for far too long to hate the other, to hate the neighbor, and not to understand that supporting terror leads them nowhere, leads them to their own end, and leads them to have a destroyed house at best, or losing family members at worst. And what's the future? I mean, if they were to build themselves a better future, they need to have a more open-minded approach to this, understand that Israel is there and is there to stay. Israel will not be eliminated from the map, no matter how hard they will try. And now let's try to have direct negotiation to talk about it.
That's a very optimistic approach, and I really hope that it's going to happen. But I think it's very difficult this to happen. And why I claim that, because when you see that their approach of these organizations is that violence against violence, when they accuse the state of Israel that is they proceed with genocide, that's how they call it. When they say that for every dead person or kid or martyr or whatever, another 2 or 3 or 5 they're going to pop up. I think, actually, I'm not thinking, actually I'm wondering how you can manage to change people's minds, how they can see that maybe it's from their best benefit that things change.
It will not be with Hamas, that's for sure. I mean, Hamas have their own fundamentalism, radicalism mindset. It will not be with them. Eventually, we hope that from the people itself, the people of Gaza, a new leadership will come out. A new leadership that will no longer preach for the destruction of the state of Israel, that will no longer support terror, that will no longer praise the martyrhood, etc. So from the people to have a new leadership. And with this, we can negotiate and figure out what to do. With Hamas, never. We will eliminate Hamas like we said we would. That's one of the war's goal. And we are, up until now, we are doing pretty okay with this goal. We are in good percentages of eliminating their military capabilities and control capabilities, so they will no longer be able to control the Gaza Strip and its people. And I think that at a later stage, when a new leadership will come out, more moderate, not radical, not preaching to terror, that could be an opportunity for a discussion. It's very preliminary. We don't really see that, but the same way we did not see how the Second World War will end. You know, at some point at the Second World War, millions of people died. It was a whole continent war, and we didn't see that it's gonna end. But it did. Eventually it did, because some countries took decisions and there were some diplomatic efforts being made, international community's pressure, and here we are today, 80 years almost after, and it lasts.
I just hope it's not going to take another atomic or nuclear bomb to end the war, hopefully, because anyway, I'm not going to insist on the political thing, because I really like to discuss with you about how are things from the sociology point of view, from the human's approach. But before that, I want just a last comment regarding the political and the army stuff, military stuff. It started the war almost a year ago, and it was in the West Bank against Hamas, yes? Then it started as a continuity of this war, also part two, I don't know how you call it, to Hezbollah. In both cases, it was wars against organizations. Now in the picture, it comes Iran. Iran is a state. So until now, the state of Israel, it was fighting against organizations. Now in this scenario, the state of Israel maybe is going to war with another state, which is Iran. So things are getting more complicated. How you see things?
Okay, so first, to go back to some of the assumptions, we did not start a war with anyone. Hamas attacked Israel on October 7 in the most severe way. That's why we countered back and we fought back to bring back the hostages and to protect ourselves against these terrorists. With Hezbollah, since October 8, they were shooting rockets towards Israel. Thousands of rockets throughout the year. And we refrained from acting in Lebanon and from doing any military operation in Lebanon for almost a year, even though they were shooting rockets at us. So we attacked back. They were shooting rockets at us. We attacked back under the threshold of war for quite a long time. Only recently, we understood that there is an escalation with their attacks, and it's not going to go anywhere unless we dismantle this threat on our borders with the Radwan forces. It's the Nukhba. It's like the most senior, most powerful units in Hezbollah, and their plans to invade Israel from the north and to do another October 7th. So we wanted to eliminate this threat after they've been shooting at us for a year. With Iran, again, they attacked Israel twice. First time was on April 14, and second time was on October 1st. In the last attack, they shot 181 missiles. I mean, I'm talking about ballistic missiles. It's not rockets. It's missiles that can fill this room, even more than that. And they shot it against Israel to create a huge damage. They went out, with their attack against Israel, and they also did it in April with the hundreds of rockets, missiles, drones, etc. And Israel must react to these kind of attacks. We cannot, dismiss it, underestimate it. We know Iran, we know what their abilities are, and we know what their intentions are. They've been declaring it from every possible stage, and they've been funding all their proxies in the region to do exactly the same thing. Not only towards us, by the way, also the Houthis in Yemen, by the way, they're attacking other Western vessels. So it's not only towards Israel, it's towards a lot of the West, let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So will Israel go, to your question, to an all-out war with Iran? I'm not the person to say that. Obviously, there are some vectors who are trying to prevent it from both sides, and from to create to, let's say, to help Israel or not to help Israel, to push for a more specific reaction and not an all-out war.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a military expert, and I'm also not a politician, not a decision maker. Israel will react, that's for sure. On what scale, when, where, and will it create another escalation? That's very hard to estimate at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the only sure thing is that we're living in very, I would say, interesting, but it's not actually interesting. It's nobody knows. Let's put it plainly. I mean, when the war in Ukraine was started, nobody was expecting after 2 years they continue fighting, and you don't know when it's gonna finish. When the war let's call it war in Israel started, nobody was expecting a year after we're gonna continue. Basically, and I stop with the political, the military, because I really expect you to share with me how emotionally, psychologically affected this thing. Starting with you, how this situation affected Rotem?
I would say very carefully, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychologist, that we are a nation in trauma, basically. We are a nation in trauma. The way that we look at things now is different. The way that we evaluate little moments is now different, because who knows what will happen tomorrow. Just yesterday, people were sitting in a base in Israel, eating their dinner, and there was a drone blown up on their heads, killing 6, wounded, I think, 70 something, dozens. Some of them in severe condition. I mean, so people change their mindset towards living the moment, because who knows what will happen tomorrow, and to more evaluate the time with your family. Last week, when we marked 1 year to October 7th, so we held a remembrance ceremony here in Nicosia with the embassy, and we invited Gal Dalal. He is a survivor of the Nova Music Festival, and he came with another friend of his, Shmuel, who is also a survivor from the Nova. And Gal's brother is still kidnapped in Gaza by Hamas. They came together to the party, and he got out of there, very in a miraculous way. He tells this whole story about how he escaped and everything. And the brother did not come back. He was kidnapped, and he's still there, and they haven't heard anything since from him. And I think that what he tells me about his feeling throughout the year, because I listened to his story for quite a few times during his visit, is exactly how a lot of us are feeling. A sense of, first of all, the trauma. You cannot start healing, and you cannot start process what you've been through because there are still people suffering in Gaza and being buried in under tunnels that you don't know their situation, and you feel that until they're home you cannot really start healing and putting this wound to an end. On top of this, there is the personal trauma that you've been through after seeing and hearing these attacks. I'm talking about people who were sitting under bushes and under trees and hearing screams of people who are being slaughtered. People who are women who are being raped and then slaughtered and executed. So these people who are hiding, and we are calling them survivors, they're traumatized in an unimaginable way because the screaming that they've heard and they've seen that they saw, you know, all the bodies spread out, people with no organs, burned bodies everywhere. The thing that they saw shook them to the core. And I know how I feel just by seeing videos and pictures of this. I wasn't there. And those who were there even feel it more strongly because they have the hearing element, they have the smells, they have everything that they've been through. So I feel that in a lot of senses we are in a trauma. On top of all of this, you have all the people who are still evacuated because the villages around Gaza Strip are all destroyed. You need to rebuild the whole area, but no one will do that until the situation in the south is over and safe again for the people to go back to their homes. A lot of people are being evacuated from the north of Israel as well. We're talking about between 80 to 100,000 people who are displaced in their own country, who are living in hotels, in villages, in other places with their families, not knowing when they will go back to their house, if they will go back to their house, and what's left from their house. Because the north, after 1 year of bombing from Hezbollah, a lot of the cities are destroyed. They were targeting not only houses and factories, but also cemeteries. I mean, as crazy as it sounds. So people are traumatized from what they experienced. They're traumatized from the fact that they are still in this situation. People are running to shelters. My parents, just a few, I think it was on October 1st, when Iran attacked, but not only, in many other occasions as well. I'm talking about people who are almost 70 years old who had to run to the shelter and stay there for about 1 hour because the booming wouldn't stop. It's not like 5 minutes and you go out and that's it. You stay there for an hour and you hear the booms around your head. And they were there in the shelter with my grandmother, who came to visit them for the holiday, because we celebrated the Jewish New Year, the Rosh Hashanah holiday last week. So they brought my grandmother to stay with them for the holiday. She's a 95-year-old woman, and she had to run to the shelter in her own country after experiencing the Holocaust. After everything that she's been through, she had to stay in a shelter for about an hour, hearing all the booms above her head. So it's not just that trauma that we've been through, it's the trauma that we're still going through, and it's the situation where no one is spared, no one is safe. People were walking in Jaffa on the same day of Iran attack. It got blended in the news. And there were 2 terrorists from Hebron who came with machine guns and killed 6 people on the streets, just walking. A mother with her baby in I don't know how you call it, the one that you just hold your baby next to you. Mm-hmm. She was shot dead from 0 range by the terrorists. So it's a trauma that is still ongoing. That's how we feel.
In this attack, it was killed also one guy. Was in Greek origin.
True.
He was living there.
Yeah.
I
heard about that.
Many people, they wondering where and how this circle of violence is going to finish. I understand the point, your point of view. I really do. I mean, you are actually, I give you a break for water or something now. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's the beauty of this podcast. You can be just plainly. I do understand, and to be honest with you, lots of Cypriots admire the strength that the state of Israel shows and many of Cypriots, they wish to have the same attitude. But it's a different story and not for this podcast. So I do understand. At the same time, there is a circle of violence. I mean, I hit you, you hit me, I hit you back, you hit me again. Yes, I fight for my survival. I understand this. I respect this. At the same time, somebody can tell you, yes, but when you're attacking, there are many victims from the public, because when they hide behind civilians, obviously there are going to be casualties among the civilians. Bottom line, I'm really wonder, and this is not political question. This is not. I mean, this is like two persons talking. You come from Israel, I'm Cyprus, and I'm watching the and I'm asking you, how this supposed to end?
I think that there is an answer to this, but I'm just wondering, between you and me, you said two people.
Yeah.
These questions are always being referred to Israel, and I'm wondering why. I mean, why isn't no one speaking to the other side about this circle of violence, and when will it stop from their side?
Because sorry to interrupt you. I made exactly the same question when months ago I was hosting the ambassador of Palestine, and I did exactly the same question. So I'm not making this question because I point the finger to you and say what you're supposed to do. It's just to clarify.
I understand, but I'm really curious to know if someone ever made this question to the other side, because we didn't start this war. We did not. On October 6th, we were celebrating Sukkot in Israel. People were having a holiday, it's a religious holiday, and on October 7th, we woke up to a day that will forever be engraved in our memory, to the most brutal attack ever documented in the last years. We didn't start it, and yet everyone comes to us with when this cycle of violence will end. Why is no one asking Hamas? Why is no one asking Hezbollah? Why is no one asking Iran? Why everyone has this assumption that if Israel will stop, it will all stop? It will not.
It will not.
Even if Israel will say tomorrow, you know what, we're sick and tired, we're done with it. Okay, we stop fighting, we take our forces back, and we do nothing. What will happen next?
They're going to attack you.
Exactly. Yeah. And we know that. So the question of when this circle of violence ends, the answer is, and it's not in our hands. It's not in our hands to end it, because if we will stop it, they will continue. You need to have a partner on the other side that understand that if you stop, they stop as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things that people may be not aware of in Gaza, for example, why there is not a ceasefire in Gaza? Because they do not agree that we will have a stronghold in the corridor with Egypt, where they transferred all their ammunition and all their equipment to do the October 7 attack. So this is where they smuggled everything. So we want to have a stronghold there to make sure that they're not smuggling in back all these things again, because then they will do another October 7 within 5-10 years or less. They do not want that. Why? Because they don't have an intention to have a peace agreement with us. They don't have an intention to have a better future for their people. That's why we need to make sure that the people who are negotiating with us on that are not Hamas. And that it will be people who do have these kind of prosperity and peaceful thoughts for the future. But if you're discussing with people that all they want is for you to stay back and just until they recover, mm-hmm. It's not putting you anywhere. It's just we will stop the circle from our side, but then they will continue. And then we will suffer even more. Not to talk about their people that will suffer even more.
Yeah, no, I understand your point of view. And actually my question, it wasn't like, why you don't stop. The question is, you as a person, not as a diplomat, as a person, how you think this is going to end? Because for what you describe, this will never end, or it will end if, for example, is rooted out Hamas, is rooted out Hezbollah, is rooted down from people's mind that they feel that, how they say, from the river to the sea, or when, for example, Iran is change their policy that we're gonna fight until eliminate Israel, the state of Israel. So basically, this is the only way.
Basically, rooting out terrorist organization, as you mentioned, it's one phase of the process.
Yeah.
Because when you root them out, it gives a room for other leadership to come out that is not based on terrorist ideas, fundamentalism, etc. And for Iran, for example, there are ways to make them more constrained. So international pressure, economic pressure, sanctions, such. We had them in the past. I mean, economic sanctions on Iran, and it helped them from spreading, in a way. So from spreading their ideas, and the idea of having a Muslim caliphate all over from Iran to the sea. So there are ways. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes the understanding of the region. You cannot really expect people to change their mindset overnight. It's a process, and the process cannot start when you still have the terrorists controlling everything. So in Gaza, they were controlling pretty much every aspect of the Palestinians' lives. Once they're out, something else will come after, but it has to be out first, because the people, they're not objecting it. They're not objecting them vocally. They're not saying we're against Hamas, because they cannot. They will be killed on spot. So once Hamas is gone, it will give them more, let's say, option to do so.
All right. So let's check about the economical aspect of this war. I mean, one year of war, and with the mobilization of hundreds of thousands of people, the army, the necessities for the army, it's huge amounts of money. How the economy of Israel doing right now? How this affecting people? Not the economy of Israel. How this affecting people?
So I will say in two different aspects.
Yeah.
So for the common person who goes to work, it could affect the livelihood, in the sense that factories are not necessarily producing as much as before. So they're working less, so less of an income. A lot of people are on reserve services. So some project might be stuck. Things might not be developing as they could have in normal reality. The economy is struggling under this pressure, and it's a lot of pressure because it's a long time. We're talking about parts of the country where we used to have agriculture, factories, industries that are not operating. So it is influencing the fact that we need to import more. We need to find other solutions. We need to make sure that the people that are being evacuated and they have no work to go to, they need to have some kind of grants from the country. So it's also another burden on the economy. But I mean, we manage. We have the strongest minds to manage what we have and to spread it out to the people in the right way. You're taking from one pocket, you put it in another, and we manage. How long we can keep this way, it's a question mark. And how will it influence our future? For sure it will. For sure it will, because it will take time to recover from such a thing. But in our point of view, this war is fighting for our own existence. So caring about the economy before caring our own existence, it makes no sense, because if the economy will be great but the country will be gone, I mean, of course it doesn't make any sense, and we laugh at it, but this was the idea of Hamas when they did what they did. They wanted to loop in Hezbollah, the Shia militias, Iran, the Houthis. They even tried to get some support of Hamas activists in the West Bank, and their idea was to eliminate Israel. This is what they tried to do. They did not just try to do a terror attack. It's not that. We have to put it in the right perspective. So, I mean, having the economy damaged, it's one angle. Having the people traumatized is another angle. Having some parts of the country destroyed, infrastructure, etc., is another angle. But in the end of the day, we are fighting for our survival here.
Mm-hmm. How can you explain that this war is like divided the whole world in two? And I explain what I mean. I mean, you see, for example, protesters in European capitals to protest like pro-Palestinian, and they are not Muslims. And at the same time, there are, for example, in American university, this is like also, there was a huge discussion in some universities that there were some actions that was to show that they are against Israel, pro-Palestinian. It really looks to my eyes, it looks like it's like a football match now. I mean, if you can compare now the tragic event with a football match, which is like you pick up a team and you don't actually know about the team. You just pick up a team. I support now Israel, or I support this thing. How can you explain this phenomenon?
I think it's the phenomenon that has a lot to do with the increasing influence of social media. And I will put it, I will elaborate. I think that a lot of the people, as you said, they choose a team with zero understanding of what the team represents or about what's the name of the team even. Because a lot of people, you're talking about the protesters in Europe and in the United States, when you ask them who they're fighting for, they say, oh, we support the Palestinians. When you ask them, but do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hezbollah? Do you know that Hamas is controlling Gaza as a terrorist organization? Because Hamas was declared as a terrorist organization by many countries, not just by us. They know nothing. So just to say we're fighting for the Palestinians without any context to it, I mean, I wouldn't say that I underestimate it, but I wouldn't take it so seriously, in the sense that these students, they don't really have a lot of political power, and for a good reason. That's why countries are being navigated and controlled by people who were elected by the people and have the right capabilities to lead the countries. People who are yelling in the streets, sometimes they're just, being dragged by the mob. Even in the United States, for example, there were people climbing on these poles, taking off the American flag, putting a Hamas flag or Palestinian flag, and burning the American flag to the ground. If someone would look on this incident from the outside, it has nothing to do with Israel. It's Palestinian versus Americans. I mean, some of these people are just being dragged by emotions. They feel very bad about what's going on in Gaza, which I understand. I really do. I really do feel that what's happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza is horrible. They're suffering, they're under attacks, some of them lost their homes, some of them lost relatives. It's a terrible situation. But for Israel, from our point of view, we try to maximize the efforts that we take in order to minimize this cost of civilians as much as we could. Unlike any other country, we give them notice in advance to where we're going to attack. We divided the Gaza Strip into square inches of areas to tell them, now we are going to be in area A. In an hour or 5 days, we're going to be in area C. Be aware. Go to wherever is located, allocated to be as humanitarian areas. Our tanks secured the evacuation of Gazans from the north part of the Gaza Strip to the south, because they were calling us to tell us that they want to evacuate, but Hamas is preventing them to do so, because Hamas is not valuing life, it's valuing death, and they want to show a highest toll of deaf people as much as possible, so they wouldn't let them leave. So we had to clear the way for them and to actually escort them with our tanks to help them to live in safety. So we do care about the people. That's why we are transferring every day humanitarian aid by the hundreds of trucks every day going to Gaza. We are trying our best to work with humanitarian and UN organizations to make sure that this aid is actually reaching to the people and not being looted by Hamas. And it's a very difficult process, because it's not that you have an endpoint in Gaza that you hand over the aid to and they distribute it. Hamas is controlling a lot of the area, so they prevent it. So you need to go around it. You need to find solutions and to have partners on the ground. We do all this to care about the people. After October 7, they shot thousands of rockets at us. Some of these rockets, they damaged the pipelines of the water that goes from Israel to Gaza and the electricity as well. So they were cut from electricity and water in some parts. We mended it. Israel mended it. Even though it's their rockets who destroyed it, we mended it because we want the people to have what they need. So we do care about the people, and we try to minimize the damage that is caused to them. The fact that Hamas is building themselves within the population and preventing them from leaving and preventing them from being vocal about it is only showing that they're a terrorist organization, as they were designated. They are acting against any international law possible, against the humanitarian international law, no human rights, nothing. So we are trying to prevent that. And I feel that there could be a day where this reality is changed, but they have to be eliminated from their power first in order to do so.
Yeah. You're really optimistic that finally you can manage to root them out.
In Gaza?
Yes.
I think you can never eradicate an idea altogether, because it's in people's minds. For example, if you compare it to Nazi Germany, you still have people in Germany who has Nazi ideology, but you don't have the Nazi regime controlling the country.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the same. You would still have people in Gaza who has this fundamentalism, radical Islamist ideology, who wants to eradicate Israel, maybe in their minds. But if they will not be able to pursue with this ideology or to do anything about it, because they will not have the means to do that, they will not have the brigades and the army that they build around themselves. So it will just stay as an idea. And we hope that within time, it will fade away as well, like it did in other countries of the world in the past. That's the only way to move forward. I mean, having in mind always the extremist ideas, history tells us something about it, it leads you nowhere. We saw that in multiple areas of the world, not just in Israel. And in this case, it should be the same.
All right, my last question, let's say. Cyprus stands by Israel from the beginning, in many ways. How you feel about that, and in what other ways you feel that Cyprus can support better Israel?
I think that Cyprus is a strategic ally of Israel. It has been this way a lot longer before October 7, and it stayed this way after October 7, and hopefully a lot longer after October 7. We feel that we have in common a lot in terms of values, culture, what we cherish the most and what we would like to promote. And we do understand that in this region, you have to be strong against terrorism. You cannot in any way show you're supporting terrorism, because once you do, you don't know how, you know how it starts, you never know how it ends. And I think that Cyprus in that way is a very strong ally. We have a great relationship with all levels of government, starting from the president all the way to the ministers and also to the people itself. We see a lot of support within the public, and we do appreciate it very much. I feel very privileged to serve in a country that is so supportive and still wants to promote the relations between the countries, who are based on a lot of common interests as well, because we can both benefit from these good relations. And I want to say something that I feel that is also very important to mention, that sometimes when you're saying people are picking sides or picking a team, I want to be very clear. People can support Israel and support the Palestinians at the same time. It's not contradicting. What has to be on the basic understanding is that we all are against terror. We are all against terror. There is no excuse for terror, no matter where it comes from. The president said that. President Christodoulidis said that at the UN. There is no excuse for terror. There is no reason for terror. And people, the Cypriot people, and also some people in Israel, a lot of the people in Israel, they support Israel's cause, but they also support the Palestinians. It's supporting the people who are suffering from terror. Some are suffering from terror in one way, and another are suffering from terror from the other way, but it's the same terror we're talking about. And if we want to have a better world, that these people and these people can coexist right next to each other in the understanding that they have the same enemy, this is who we need to fight, and not to try to bash Israel or to bash the Palestinians. I mean, to say any negative thing about each side will lead nowhere. Only calling the problem its name, identify it, unroot it, and bring to the table to a direct negotiation sides to discuss the future. This what will make it a better future for both sides. So if people are supporting Israel and supporting the Palestinian, it is with no contradiction, and we do support them as well.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I'm going to finish with the same way I finished 11 months ago. I really hope that this is going to end soon, very soon, and to stop all this tragedy. It's in our neighborhood. It's just some 100 kilometers. Yeah.
Yeah, we do hope so as well.
Ivan, I turn again to Greek just to say bye to the guys. All right. Μπορεί να συμφωνείτε, μπορεί να διαφωνείτε, αλλά είναι αυτό που λέω πάντα. Βλέπετε τα podcast με ανοιχτό μυαλό και ανοιχτή καρδιά. Μέχρι την επόμενη φορά να είστε όλοι καλά. Γεια σας.